So last week we looked at the story of the stoning of Stephen. And Stephen was a follower of Jesus who was proclaiming the gospel, healing those in need. And the Jewish leaders treated Stephen just like they treated Jesus. They killed him. They thought that they were going to end the Jesus movement, but in fact they only propel it forward. The disciples are dispersed all throughout the region around Jerusalem, and they begin to share the gospel as well. Well, this week in Acts chapter 8, we are introduced to a character, or rather reintroduced to a character named Philip. And Philip is someone who we met in the Gospel of Luke. He's from Bethsaida, where James and John are from, and Peter. And he was a fisherman, but now he's a follower of Jesus, empowered by the Holy Spirit, and he's doing miraculous things just like the other disciples. He goes into a city in Samaria and he's healing people. He's preaching the gospel. People give their lives to Jesus. Peter and John, they come and they see what's happened. They pray over the people. The people there receive the Holy Spirit. The Spirit is moving and working all throughout the region, even in places like Samaria. And then we see another story with Philip, and this is our story for this week. Philip meets an Ethiopian eunuch. And he's told by the Spirit, told by an angel of the Lord, by the work of the Spirit, he's told to go down this desert road, a road that no one would go down unless they were crazy or looking for trouble. But he goes down the road because the Spirit calls him to. And on his way, he meets an Ethiopian eunuch. And this Ethiopian eunuch, he's in his chariot and he's riding from Jerusalem, where he was worshiping. He's apparently a Gentile God-fearer, back to Ethiopia, where he's serving the queen there. And on his way, he's reading the prophet Isaiah. And Philip comes up next to the Ethiopian eunuch, and he asked him, he said, "Do you understand what you're reading?" And the Ethiopian eunuch says, "How could I, unless someone explains it to me?" And then Philip takes that opportunity to share the gospel with him. The Ethiopian eunuch then gives his life to Jesus and then asks this question, where can I be baptized? What do I have to do to get baptized? And Philip says, "Look, there's some water right here," and he baptizes him in the water. And then something incredible happens. What happens is that the Spirit takes Philip up and literally carries him away. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen someone picked up and carried away by the Spirit. But Luke is being very clear here. And he's telling us something really important. He's telling us that Philip is completely and totally in tune with the Spirit. He's in fact so in tune with the Spirit that the Spirit is picking him up and taking him where he's supposed to go next. And what's even more important about this story is that we see what happens when someone is obedient to the Spirit. When someone is obedient to the Spirit, people's lives are changed by the gospel. All throughout the book of Acts, Luke shows us how the disciples are obedient to the work of the Spirit, and that the Spirit works through their lives, and the fruit of that is always lives being changed by the gospel. Philip is obedient to the Spirit's calling to go down this desert road where no one should go, to go and talk to the Ethiopian eunuch, to share the gospel with him. And because of that, the eunuch's life is changed by the gospel of Jesus. And so I don't know about you. I don't know anything about cars. I don't know how cars work. I don't know how the engine runs or anything like that. But I do know what it looks like and what it sounds like when a car is running well. And I can diagnose when there's a problem. If I go to turn my car on and it doesn't turn on, I know that there's an issue. I may not know what the issue is, but I know that there's an issue. We as believers, we don't really know how the Spirit works and in what way the mechanics of the Spirit works, but we do know what it looks like when the Spirit works. We do know, based on the book of Acts and the entire New Testament, that when the Spirit works, it looks like people's lives being changed by the gospel. And so this week, we need to assess our lives. We need to look at our lives and see if the Spirit is truly working. And so what we want you to do is we want you to challenge your group with this week. Based on the story of Philip, we want you to challenge your group to pray that God would lead them to the broken and that he would give them the courage to take action. Just like Philip was listening to the call of the Spirit. He obeyed the Spirit. He took action. The eunuch's life was changed. Would your group pray this week that God would lead them to the broken so that lives can be changed by the gospel, that we would see the Spirit working and moving in the life of our church. But Acts chapter 8, the story of Philip and the Ethiopian eunuch, that is our story for this week. That is also our challenge for this week, that we would pray that God would lead us to the broken, that we'd have courage to take action. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you soon.